You know that moment when the people you trust most smile at you, but the smile hides something darker? I felt it that night, sitting at the same table I'd known my whole life. The laughter was too loud, the lights too bright, and every word of praise aimed anywhere but me. I held my breath as a gift slid across the table, and in that instant, years of sacrifice felt like nothing. What do you do when the ones meant to cherish you prove you were never their priority? The living room smelled of pine and cinnamon candles, the kind of holiday scent that usually wrapped me in comfort. The Anderson house in Ridgewood was glowing, twinkling lights on the tree, laughter rising over the hum of a Christmas playlist. My father poured champagne into flutes, my mother fussed over the seating, and for a moment, I let myself hope this year might feel different. Chloe sat cross-legged near the tree, hair curled perfectly, her nails polished to a glossy red. She always seemed to be at the center of attention, as though the spotlight had followed her from the day she was born. My parents leaned in close, their eyes glittering with anticipation as she reached for the biggest box wrapped in gold paper. The room hushed as she tore the ribbon. Gasps filled the air when the Louis Vuitton logo appeared, the bag glimmering under the warm light. Chloe squealed, pressing it to her chest. "It's perfect, exactly what I wanted," she said, her voice dripping with joy. My parents beamed, their pride radiating across the room. "You deserve it, sweetheart," my mother said, smoothing Chloe's hair. "We knew this bag would help you feel confident in the new year." My father raised his glass. "Nothing but the best for our Chloe." Applause broke out. Laughter followed, and I sat quietly in my chair, palms pressed together to stop the shaking. A $4,000 bag. Their daughter's happiness bought and displayed, proof of their devotion. Then, almost as an afterthought, my mother reached behind her and handed me a small, flat package. "And this is for you, Hannah," she said with a smile too casual to be sincere. I peeled back the paper and slid out a flimsy bookmark, its barcode sticker still clinging to the back. The price read $1.50. For a second, I thought it had to be a joke. My lips curved into a smile, my laugh rehearsed in light, but inside my chest something cracked so sharply I could almost hear it. A designer tote for Chloe, a bargain bin trinket for me. The room didn't pause. No one noticed the flush creeping across my face. Instead, the celebration resumed, my father clinking his glass, my mother snapping pictures, Chloe posing with her new prize as if she were starring in a holiday ad. I tucked the bookmark back into its paper and set it on my lap, my fingers gripping it so tightly the edges bent. 12 years of work, of sacrifice, of wiring money into the family fund they promised would be shared fairly. 12 years of silence every time Chloe was praised while my efforts were brushed aside. All of it erased in a single moment, replaced by a token worth less than the wrapping paper it came in. I stared at the twinkling lights on the tree, blinking against the sting in my eyes. The room was loud with cheer, but in my head, all I could hear was the echo of a truth I had tried to ignore. I wasn't invisible by accident. I was invisible by design. That was the moment the illusion of fairness shattered. And I knew, with a clarity sharper than glass, that this Christmas would be the last time I sat quietly while my worth was measured in crumbs. The laughter carried on around the tree, but I sat frozen, the flimsy bookmark still pressed against my leg. The more I looked at it, the more absurd it felt. A luxury tote for Chloe, a bargain trinket for me. The contrast was impossible to ignore, yet no one else seemed to notice. I cleared my throat. "That is a beautiful bag, Chloe," and I said, my voice steady. "But can I ask something? Why is there such a difference between our gifts?" The room quieted. For the first time that evening, all eyes turned to me. Richard leaned back in his chair, his glass of champagne balanced between his fingers. His tone was calm, too calm. "Because you are already established. Hannah, you have your job, your stability. Chloe is still finding her place. She needed this more than you do. And Linda nodded, her eyes wide with practiced concern. We always told you, family support's the one who needs it most. You have always been independent. Chloe needs encouragement right now. That is what love looks like. And their words landed heavy, wrapped in a logic that had been rehearsed for years. Independence, stability, resilience. All the things they praised me for had become excuses to deny me the same care they poured endlessly into Chloe. Chloe tilted her head, her voice sweet on the surface but sharp underneath. I didn't ask for this bag to hurt you, Hannah. I just want to feel confident to move forward. Don't you want me to be happy? You're on the same tactic she had used since we were children, twisting guilt into obligation, turning her wants into my responsibility. Her eyes glistened with innocence, but I had seen the smirk behind those eyes too many times. I placed the bookmark carefully on the table and folded my hands. I am happy when things are fair. This does not feel fair. Richard's jaw tightened. You will not lecture us at our own table. We have carried this family for decades. Do not forget who paid for your meals when you were a child. The irony made me want to laugh. Meals as a child. As if that erased the years I had worked double shifts to cover my own tuition, the nights I had eaten noodles so I could send money into the family fund, the sacrifices I made while Chloe's every whim was indulged. Linda's voice trembled, not with weakness, but with weaponized emotion. Do not make this ugly. Hannah! Families share. Families sacrifice. This is not about fairness. It is about love. Love. The word cut deeper than the bookmark in my hand. Love had become their disguise, the blanket they threw over every wound. Love was the name they gave to favoritism. Love was the excuse they used when my sacrifices were dismissed. I glanced at Chloe. Her lips curled into that familiar smirk, small and sharp, daring me to lose control. She wanted me to explode, to become the bitter, jealous sister she could point to when she told her friends I was difficult. But I stayed calm. I unfolded my napkin and set it neatly beside my plate. My voice was low, deliberate. If this is what you call love, then maybe we need to reconsider what that word really means. Silence stretched across the room, louder than the carols playing faintly in the background. Richard's face hardened. Linda's hand trembled against her glass, and Chloe's smile froze mid-smirk. For the first time, the cracks in their celebration showed. The illusion of a perfect family gathering had fractured, and no amount of glittering lights or champagne could hide it anymore. The silence at the table clung to me long after I drove away that night. With the bookmark still in my coat pocket, I could not stop the reel of memories from spinning. Every moment of my past seemed to replay with new clarity, each one proof that this was not an isolated slight but part of a long, deliberate pattern. I was 19 again, standing in line at the financial aid office. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I signed my name on loan papers that would shadow me for years. $42,000 borrowed in my name just to finish nursing school. My parents had promised the family fund was meant to help with milestones, but when I asked, Richard shook his head. We are already covering Chloe's expenses. You will manage. You always do. And so I managed. I worked nights at the campus clinic, weekends at a diner, stretching myself thin to keep the loan payments current while Chloe's tuition checks cleared effortlessly. By 22, I was living in a cramped apartment in Jersey City, rent $1,400 a month. The walls were thin, the heater groaned every winter, and sometimes I had to choose between paying the electric bill or buying fresh groceries. Meanwhile, Chloe had just signed a lease on a sleek condo in Brooklyn, $3,200 a month, fully covered by our parents. I visited her once, sitting on her velvet couch while she showed off the city view. She handed me a glass of wine, smiling. Mom and Dad say I deserve this after all my hard work. I smiled back, But my stomach burned with the knowledge that my sacrifices were invisible while her comfort was celebrated. At 25, I remember clocking into the hospital for a double shift, exhaustion pressing into every bone. My pay stub that week showed 62 hours, barely enough to cover my loan interest and bills. That same weekend, Chloe posted pictures from her study abroad program in Milan. A $15,000 trip, paid for without hesitation. The captions read, "Grateful for my amazing parents who believe in me." I stared at the screen on my lunch break, the hum of the vending machine louder than the chatter in the break room. Grateful. That word twisted in my chest like a blade. Even birthdays told the same story. On my 21st, I received a sweater 2 sizes too large and a card signed without thought. On Chloe's 21st, they threw her a rooftop party in Manhattan, complete with a hired photographer and champagne tower. I pored over receipts from the family fund later, realizing the cost of that party was nearly equal to a semester's tuition payment I had scraped together alone. The pattern was undeniable. Every milestone of mine was met with lectures about resilience and independence, while Chloe's were met with celebration and luxury. Every sacrifice I made became the reason they claimed I did not need help. Every dollar I set aside for the family fund became another brick in the pedestal they built for her. The bookmark in my pocket was not just a thoughtless gift. It was the symbol of every time I had been told my worth was measured by how much I could endure without complaint. I closed my eyes that night and let the memories settle. The unfairness was not new, but my silence had kept it alive. Now, with the weight of years pressing on me, I knew something had to change. The bookmark was still in my pocket when I pulled into Eagle Rock Reservation that night. The overlook was quiet, the city glowing in the distance, but my chest felt like it might burst. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The laughter from my parents' living room still echoed in my head, Chloe posing with her luxury tote while I sat with a $1.50 trinket. For years I had told myself these moments did not matter, that favoritism was just a small price to pay for keeping the peace. I thought if I worked harder, stayed silent, and kept proving my strength, I would eventually be acknowledged. But the silence had not protected me. It had erased me. The flashbacks of tuition checks, condo leases, and Instagram posts played again, each one stabbing deeper. I thought of the loan payments that ate up $300 from every paycheck. I thought of the nights I skipped groceries to wire deposits into the family fund. And now, after 12 years of sacrifice, they had reduced my worth to a token worth less than a cup of coffee. I pulled the bookmark from my coat and held it under the dim light of the dashboard. The barcode sticker was still on the back, the price glaring at me like a cruel joke. I pressed it flat in my palm and felt the edges bite into my skin. This was not just a gift. It was the summary of how my family had chosen to see me, useful when I provided, invisible when I asked. For the first time in my life, the anger did not scare me. It clarified everything. I had spent years thinking I was part of a team, contributing to a future we would all share. Now I understood that future was only ever meant for Chloe. My phone buzzed with another Instagram notification. Chloe had posted a photo with the caption, "Dreams come true when you have family who believes in you." The comments were full of hearts and congratulations. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, then set the phone face down. Belief. That word twisted in my chest. They had believed in Chloe enough to hand her luxury and security at every turn. Their belief in me was nothing more than an expectation that I could survive without them. The cold air seeped into the car as I opened the window. I let the sounds of the city drift up, faint and distant, and whispered to myself, "This ends tonight." I folded the bookmark carefully and slipped it back into my pocket. Not as a keepsake, but as evidence. I was done being silent. If my parents wanted to dress favoritism as love, then I would strip away the disguise. If they wanted to build Chloe's dreams on my back, then I would show them the receipts they had ignored. As I started the car, The decision settled in me like steel. The family narrative had always been written without my voice. Now I was ready to write my own. The morning after Christmas, I woke with a heaviness that refused to lift. The bookmark lay on my nightstand, a quiet reminder of everything I had decided the night before. I brewed coffee, sat at my small kitchen table in Jersey City, and pulled out a notebook. If I was going to confront this, I needed more than emotions. I needed evidence. I began with my pay stubs. Years of working 12-hour shifts at the hospital had left a paper trail, each stub showing the deductions for my student loans. $42,000 borrowed, with payments of $300 every month. I stacked them in a neat pile. This was my sacrifice, in black and white. Next, I logged into my loan account online. The balance blinked on the screen, still hovering above $25,000 even after years of payments. I printed the statement, the total interest circled in red ink. Proof that independence had cost me more than anyone cared to admit. Then I opened a folder labeled Family Fund. Every month for 12 years, I had wired deposits into that account. Some months it was $50, some months $300, but always something. I printed the bank history. My name lined every entry, month after month. Not a single deposit carried the names Richard or Linda. Not one from Chloe. I remembered the times I had asked about it, how my father said, "This is for family milestones." I thought that meant weddings, houses, or emergencies. I thought it meant fairness. But when I checked the outgoing transactions, I saw Chloe's tuition checks, $38,000 a year, cleared from that same account. I saw a lease payment for a Brooklyn condo, $3,200 a month. I saw a wire-labeled study abroad program Milan, $15,000. All of it signed by my father. None of it touched by me. My hands trembled as I highlighted each line. This was not favoritism anymore. It was misappropriation. By noon, my dining table was covered in receipts, bank statements, loan documents, tuition bills, lease agreements, screenshots of Chloe's Instagram posts where she posed with captions like, "So thankful for my parents for making this possible." Every detail painted the same picture, years of sacrifice from me, funneled into her comfort. The weight of it was overwhelming. I pressed my palms against the table and whispered, "You cannot erase this anymore." That afternoon, I carried the folder into the hospital, unable to keep it out of sight. Mark Lewis, my colleague and closest friend, noticed immediately. "What is all that?" and he asked, setting down his coffee. I hesitated, then told him everything. From the bookmark to the bank statements, from the loans to the luxury. His face hardened as I spoke. "Do you hear yourself, Hannah?" he said finally. "This is not just unfair. It is theft hidden behind family loyalty." I shook my head. "They will never see it that way. They will say it is love, or support, or tradition. They will say I am selfish for even bringing it up." Mark leaned forward, his voice steady. "Silence is not loyalty. It is complicity. You have been complicit long enough." His words struck something deep inside me. Complicity. That was what my silence had become. That evening, I searched for someone who could give me more than sympathy. I found the office of Olivia Carter, a lawyer in Newark specializing in family financial disputes. The next morning, I sat across from her in a room lined with legal books, my folder of receipts spread across her desk. She flipped through the pages, her eyes sharp, her tone precise. "Every deposit is yours. Every withdrawal benefits your sister. This is a textbook case of misallocation." Hearing the word case made my throat tighten. I had never imagined building a case against my own parents. But the memory of that bookmark, the weight of those years, stiffened my spine. What can I do? I asked quietly. Olivia looked me in the eye. You can demand restitution. You can freeze further withdrawals. And if they resist, you can take this to court. Blood does not excuse theft. The words settled over me like a gavel hitting wood. For the first time, I felt like I was no longer begging for fairness. I was preparing to claim it. It did not take long for my parents to find out I had gone to a lawyer. 2 days after my meeting with Olivia, my phone lit up with my father's name. His voice was sharp before I even said hello. You do not drag family into legal matters. Hannah. Do you understand? I held the phone tightly, forcing my voice to stay even. This is not private when my money has been used for over a decade to fund Chloe's life while I paid every cent of my own. There was a pause, then the sound of glass hitting a table. You should be grateful for everything we gave you. After all we have done, this is how you repay us? The line went dead before I could answer. By evening, my mother called. Her voice was shaky, but the tears felt rehearsed. Hannah, sweetheart, you are tearing the family apart. Chloe is devastated. She feels like you are punishing her for something she never asked for. We only wanted to give both of you what you needed. I closed my eyes. Mom, what I needed was fairness. What I needed was for the family fund to mean something to me too. But every cent went to Chloe. How is that love? Her sobs grew louder, words broken between gasps. Please, do not do this. Families share. Families sacrifice. You are stronger than Chloe. You always were. She needed more. The guilt curled around me like smoke, thick and suffocating. I had heard these lines my entire life. Independence used as an excuse. Sacrifice demanded like a duty. I almost believed her, almost let the guilt pull me back into silence. But then I saw the receipts spread across Olivia's desk in my mind. Numbers do not cry. Bank statements do not beg. Facts stand no matter how loud the emotions get. That same night, Chloe posted an Instagram story. A selfie with our mother, both smiling, champagne glasses raised. The caption read, "Blessed to have parents who always put family first." A heart emoji glowed at the end. The comments flooded in, so sweet. You deserve it. Girl. True family goals. I felt my jaw tighten. The story was aimed at me. Not subtle. Not innocent. By morning, messages from cousins and family friends began to arrive. Some asked if I had really turned against my own parents. Others lectured me about gratitude. A few told me to drop it before I embarrassed everyone. At the hospital, Mark found me staring at my phone, my hands shaking. They are trying to isolate you, he said firmly. That is what people do when they know they are wrong. They make noise to drown out the truth. But noise does not erase facts. His words steadied me. I turned off my phone and slid it into my locker. When I returned home that night, the silence of my apartment felt like a shield. For the first time, I did not feel alone in it. I had the receipts, I had the lawyer, and I had the truth. If my parents wanted to fight, I was ready. This time, their tears and their lectures would not erase what the numbers proved. The pressure had been building for weeks. Every call from my parents dripping with guilt, every post from Chloe polished to perfection. It was not enough for them to drain me quietly anymore. They needed to control the narrative. And for years, they had succeeded because I let them. But silence was no longer an option. I sat at my kitchen table late one evening, the receipts spread in neat stacks across the surface. Loan statements, bank transfers, lease agreements, screenshots of Chloe's social media posts where she flaunted the fruits of my labor. I drafted a letter, deliberate and steady, each sentence carrying the weight of 12 years. To my family, I wrote, For too long, I have stayed quiet while the sacrifices I made were twisted into excuses to deny me fairness. These are the facts. Every deposit into the family fund was mine. Every withdrawal was for Chloe. While I worked double shifts to pay down loans, she received tuition, rent, and vacations from money I earned. I will not remain silent while the truth is erased. I attached the documents, highlighted the numbers, and sent the email to every cousin, aunt, and uncle. My finger hovered over the send button for a moment, my heart racing, then I clicked. The sound of the whoosh from my outbox felt like a release. I had been waiting for my entire adult life. The responses came fast. Some were quiet, offering only a line or two. I never realized. Then I'm so sorry. Others were harsher. You should not expose family business like this. Gratitude matters more than fairness. But the silence from my parents was the loudest of all. Then, the unexpected happened. My Uncle David called me. His voice was steady, almost relieved. Hannah, I need you to know something. Years ago, I gave your father $12,000 to contribute to the family fund. He told me it would be used for shared needs, but I never saw a cent again. And when I asked, he brushed me off. I stayed quiet, thinking it was just me. But it was not just me, was it? My throat tightened. No, Uncle David. It was not just you. I am ready to put it in writing, he said. I will sign whatever you need. I will not let you stand alone. Tears pricked my eyes as I hung up. For the first time, the story was no longer mine alone. It was a pattern, a history that stretched beyond me. The next Sunday, my parents hosted a family dinner. Chloe posted the invitation on Instagram, captioned, "Family always finds a way back." The implication was clear. They wanted to reclaim control, to paint me as the bitter daughter sulking in the corner. But when the relatives arrived, the tension was different. My cousins whispered in the kitchen, some avoiding eye contact, others offering quiet nods of support. My parents smiled too brightly, their voices strained as they urged everyone to sit and enjoy the meal. Halfway through dinner, Uncle David stood. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket and placed it on the table. "This is my affidavit," he said simply. "I gave $12,000 into the fund. Richard and Linda promised it was for family. They spent it elsewhere. I'm not afraid to say it." The room froze. My father's face went pale, my mother's fork clattered against her plate, and Chloe's jaw tightened. For once, it was not just my word against theirs. I looked around the table, the bookmark still tucked in my purse, and realized the narrative had shifted. I was no longer the ungrateful daughter complaining in isolation. I was the one holding the truth, and now I had witnesses. That night, as I walked out of the Anderson house, the cold air hit my face like a baptism. The power of silence had been broken. For the first time, they could not control the story. The letter had shattered the illusion, but what came next would test everything I had gathered. Olivia Carter scheduled the meeting for a Friday afternoon. Her office in Newark was sleek and quiet, a place where truth felt heavier than emotion. I arrived early, folder in hand, every document carefully organized. When Richard and Linda walked in, Chloe trailing behind them, the air shifted. Richard's shoulders were stiff, his jaw set like stone. Linda dabbed at her eyes with a tissue before even sitting down, her face the perfect mask of a wounded mother. Chloe crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair, her designer bag resting at her feet like a trophy. Olivia greeted them with professional calm. "Thank you for coming. We are here to review financial records concerning the Anderson Family Fund." "I have reviewed extensive documentation she began laying the receipts on the table one by one. Bank statements, highlighted with Hannah's deposits. Loan documents showing her debt. Tuition bills with Chloe's name in bold. paid in full from the family fund. Lease agreements for the Brooklyn condo. Screenshots of Chloe's public posts, flaunting vacations, bags, and captions thanking her parents. Richard's face reddened with every page. This is a family matter. You have no right to drag us into an office like this. Olivia did not flinch. On the contrary, Mr. Anderson, when one family member's contributions are consistently misallocated for the sole benefit of another, that is not a private misunderstanding. It is financial exploitation. And financial exploitation has consequences. Linda's voice cracked as she clutched her tissue. We did what we had to. Chloe needed support. Hannah was always strong. Why should we be punished for loving our children differently? Olivia's gaze was steady. Loving differently is not the issue. Misusing funds under the guise of family support is... Blood does not excuse theft. Like the words sliced through the room. Richard slammed his hand on the table. We fed her. We raised her. She owes us everything. I finally spoke, my voice steady. You raised me to believe family meant fairness. Yet every sacrifice I made went unseen. I paid off my own loans while you covered Chloe's tuition. I scraped by in a small apartment while you furnished her condo. You told me silence was strength, but it was only convenient for you. Chloe rolled her eyes. You are jealous. You always have been. Maybe if you were not so bitter, Mom and Dad would not feel the need to compensate me. I pulled the bookmark from my purse and placed it on the table. This is what you gave me while you handed Chloe thousands. If you want to talk about compensation, start here. This is not jealousy. This is proof that my worth has been measured in crumbs. The room fell silent. Even Linda stopped dabbing at her eyes. Olivia cleared her throat. Here is the proposal. The Andersons will repay $62,000 to Hannah over 4 years with 5% interest. This is not negotiable. If we move to court, the evidence and testimonies will be public, including Uncle David's affidavit. I suspect you would prefer to avoid that. Richard's jaw tightened. Linda shifted uncomfortably. Chloe muttered under her breath, This is ridiculous! And for the first time, I did not look away. I stared at them, steady and unflinching. The bookmark rested between us, flimsy cardboard that had become a monument of years ignored. After a long silence, Richard picked up the pen. His signature scrawled across the page, angry and jagged. Linda followed, her hand trembling. Chloe refused to touch it, her arms crossed tight. When the papers were signed, Olivia gathered them calmly. This matter is resolved on paper. Whether you resolve it in your hearts is not my concern. As I left the office, the winter air felt sharp but clean. For the first time, I was not carrying their weight alone. The agreement was signed, the ink still fresh on the pages that had forced my parents to acknowledge what they had denied for years. Walking out of Olivia Carter's office, I felt the weight on my chest shift. Not gone, but lighter. For the first time in my life, I was no longer begging for fairness. I had claimed it. The months that followed were quiet but full of change. The repayments began, small at first, wired directly into my account every month. It was not about the money alone, though watching the balance of my student loans drop faster than before filled me with relief. What mattered was the recognition written in black and white. They could not erase the truth anymore. By summer, I had finally paid down the last of my loans. $42,000 of debt that had once chained me was gone. I kept the final loan statement folded in my desk drawer, not as a reminder of hardship, but as proof that I had survived it. With the weight of debt lifted, I started saving seriously. By the end of the year, I had enough to put down $18,000 as a deposit on a modest townhouse in Montclair. The day I signed the papers, the realtor handed me the keys with a smile, but the true satisfaction came when I unlocked the door for the first time. The place was small, the paint a little faded, but it was mine. No one could take that away. No one could tell me I had not earned it. At the hospital, life changed too. My work no longer felt like a grind for survival. I mentored younger nurses, guiding them through the same exhaustion I had once carried alone. They looked at me with gratitude I had never received at home. For the first time, I felt respected without having to sacrifice myself to prove it. Family gatherings became different. I kept my distance, choosing carefully when to attend and when to decline. The first dinner I skipped, my phone buzzed with messages. Richard sent a single line, "You are still part of this family whether you like it or not." I let the message sit unanswered. Linda tried calling late at night, her voice softer than before. "We miss you." "Hannah!" "Things will be different now." I listened, but I no longer let her tears dictate my choices. Chloe was quieter too. She did not post as many photos flaunting her life. When she did, the captions had changed. Gone were the lines about parents funding her dreams. Instead, she wrote about her new job at a boutique in Brooklyn, her first attempt at standing on her own. We did not become close, but when she reached out once asking how to manage her rent, I gave her honest advice without bitterness. She had her own lessons to learn, just as I had learned mine. In my townhouse, I set up a small study with shelves lined by nursing textbooks and the folder of receipts that had once broken me. I kept the bookmark too, not as a wound but as a symbol. Whenever doubt crept in, I looked at it and remembered the night I chose to stop being silent. Peace did not arrive in a dramatic moment. It came in quiet mornings with coffee on my porch, in evenings when I locked my own front door, in the steady rhythm of living without begging for approval. My family had not changed overnight, and maybe they never would. But I had changed. And that was enough. A year later, the world looked different. Not because my family had suddenly transformed, but because I had. The townhouse in Montclair became more than a place to live. It was proof that the years of struggle, the nights of exhaustion, and the courage to finally speak had led to something solid. The keys that once jingled nervously in my pocket now felt like medals of survival. The repayments from my parents continued each month. They were small victories, reminders that fairness was no longer just an ideal I whispered about, but a reality written in contracts. I no longer needed their approval because I had earned my own respect. With debt behind me, I turned my energy outward. I started the Anderson Health Scholars Fund, a modest scholarship for nursing students who reminded me of myself at 19, hungry to learn, scraping by, too afraid to ask for help. Watching the first recipient, a young woman from Newark, stand up at the hospital recognition dinner with tears in her eyes, I realized legacy is not what we inherit. Legacy is what we create when we choose to break the cycle. My relationship with Chloe shifted too. She was no longer flaunting luxury gifts on social media. Instead, she was working long hours at her boutique, her captions reading about late nights and small wins. Once, she called me, her voice tired. "I never realized how hard it is to stand on my own. I used to think you were just jealous. Now I understand you were surviving." For the first time, I believed her words. My parents softened in small ways. Linda's calls carried less guilt and more listening. Richard still struggled with pride, but his lectures grew shorter. They had not changed completely, and perhaps they never would. But I no longer built my life on the hope that they might. The bookmark still rests on my desk, framed between glass panes. Not as a scar, but as a reminder. That flimsy piece of cardboard once symbolized my invisibility. Now it is the emblem of the day I chose to stop being erased. If there is one lesson my story carries, it is this: boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are survival. They are the lines we draw to protect the parts of ourselves that no one else will guard. Love without respect is not love at all. And silence is not loyalty. It is permission for injustice to continue, I know some of you listening have been there, sitting at a table where your worth was measured in crumbs while someone else was handed the feast. Maybe it was a sibling, maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a partner. I know what it feels like to swallow the hurt and tell yourself it does not matter. But I am here to tell you it does. You are not wrong for wanting fairness. You are not cruel for demanding respect. You are not selfish for drawing boundaries. You are worthy, exactly as you are, without needing to buy or beg for love. This is why I share my story. Because pain becomes power when we speak it out loud, and silence becomes strength when we break it. If this story resonated with you, stay with us. This is Heartless Revenge, where betrayal meets truth, where pain is turned into strength, and where every voice matters. Subscribe now, because your story deserves to be heard too.